Good afternoon, Coolest Coast. It is time for Coffee on the Coast. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host today, Tina Prigge. Delighted to welcome back to the show my guest, Dylan Chmura-Moore, the Maestro of the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra. Dylan, so good to see you.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me on, Tina.
You've got a great show coming up. It's called Let's Paint, Let's Play, Pictures and Games. It is Saturday, February 3rd, 7:30 at the Capitol Civic Center. You've got some cool stuff planned. Let's talk about the whole thing.
Well, I think this concert really fits into our season theme so well. The season is all about inspiring us to work together and grow. And this concert taps into all of that. It taps into education. It taps into with business ties across the pond, and it taps into new technologies that are just emerging from our region. It's going to be a great show for the whole community to lift us up and move us forward.
I love it. Okay, let's start with how we're dressed. I've got this, unique coat on. Look at your amazingly unique happy coat. Why are we wearing Japanese happy coats today?
So on the first half of our concert, one of the things we're doing is celebrating the 30-year anniversary of the official association with Kamigawa, Japan, our sister city in Japan. And so I'm wearing this in honor of the traditional dress. You're wearing one in honor of some traditional dress, and we're playing music that honors this relationship too. So for the past. It's been 2 years now, probably. We had some conversations with the delegates over in Japan, and we asked, what could we play to honor this relationship with you? And we went back and forth, and one of their suggestions was to do something that is of contemporary culture, to speak to how we could grow and how we've shared economies more recently. And so we settled on some great video game music. And video game music, it really comes at you from two different angles, two different perspectives. If you grew up with video games, then it's just what you know. It's what you love. It's just part of you, and it's a soundtrack to your life. There's nothing weird about it. It's nothing odd about it. And then there's these old stalwarts who are like, what is this newfangled thing that's infiltrating our concert hall? This can't be good music, whatever. But we have some of the brightest minds in the world today, artists, musicians, visual artists too. I mean, who are coloring these games, drawing these games, writing the stories for these games. Great literature is being created for these games, and of course, you can imagine great music is being also written for these games. I don't know if the audience knows, but a big budget video game will employ more than a big budget Hollywood film. The next Marvel movie will employ less people to make their movie than the next whatever, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto, whatever. I mean, 1,000+ people are being hired to make these video games. Huge investments. And so we're playing music from the universe, the franchise Final Fantasy, who's been around for about 30 years as well, which is a nice little tie-in, I suppose. And I mean, for perspective, this game over the 30 years or whatever, it's sold over 180 million units, they think. Now, I don't want to do the math on that because those prices have changed, but we're talking billions of dollars of revenue that this game has brought in. What is that equal or more so than any of the biggest Marvel action films? I mean, these are humongous, monumental things that exist in our world, and some of us just are oblivious to this whole other universe of fun. But it is a lot of fun, and this music is a lot of fun. I mean, it is all the action and bombastic, explosion things that you'd imagine in any kind of big Hollywood film soundtrack. If you like soundtracks, and I'm sure we all do, and also the most sentimental things. People play, how many hours and days and weeks do people spend playing a really epic video game? This takes you on those journeys. There's the highs, there's the lows, and the music really fits that storytelling. It's fantastic. Even if you've never heard about Final Fantasy, it's great music from a great story with a great tradition.
And music really is such a part of our lives, I think, in a way that sometimes we don't even recognize, right? Like I like to think about Star Wars and how epic the music is from Star Wars. Imagine if Darth Vader had his scene where he walks in and there was no music underlying that.
Absolutely.
Right? It would not have nearly the same impact. And so music is being used in that same emotional and compelling and just visceral way with video games, right? They've got that same level, if not even surpassed, quality of incredible music.
And it's so additive. I mean, when the first whatever episode 4 came out in late 70s, at 79, I think, something like that. And they had the Darth Vader theme, dum bum bim bum ba whatever. And it meant something, right? It meant something to that character. And then you hear it 3 years later in the next iteration, and 3 years later in the next iteration. And for over, has it been 40 years or 50 years or whatever it's been, 40 years since Star Wars first came on the map. Oh my gosh, that sound, that little, we call it a leitmotif in music, tells more than just that one instance in that story. It tells 40 years of history of seeing it with your grandfather or daughter or whatever, of playing with action figures. And so this same kind of music, the same video games use the same techniques. And so if you played Final Fantasy 1 and never again, or you played Final Fantasy, I think 16 is out now, if I'm not mistaken. It was 15, I can't remember. I think one just came out. And they have the same leitmotifs played through all of these video games. And so it tells the story of our whole lives. I said this before, but it has so much more meaning than just this one little character in this one little segment. It's so smart. And it's so deep. Its roots are so deep that it really affects our listening experience.
Yeah. So the composer for Final Fantasy is a Japanese composer named Nobuo Uematsu. And so that's the unique tie-in then between the sister city friendship with Kamigawa, Japan, and Manitowoc are celebrating 30 years this year, 30 years of friendship. And so this concert is being dedicated to that friendship with this performance of the music by Nobuo Uematsu, who I think you said is considered the Beethoven of game music, of video game music.
Those aren't my words, but yes, absolutely. People have thrown that around a lot. And he's not the only one. As you can imagine, anybody who scores for any kind of film or any kind of series of films over decades, they have help. You know, they compose with friends. They have a whole team of people scoring. And so there's 2 other composers that are in this Final Fantasy suite that we're going to be playing. Uematsu has 5 of the tunes, wrote 5 of the tunes. And then he's kind of removed himself slowly from the franchise, and some new composers have come over and have equally adept and brilliant musicians as well. As you saw right there, Chmura-Moore wrote, I think, my favorite tune out of any of the Final Fantasy musics of all time, this piece called Somnus. It will break your heart for sure. And Hamamatsu wrote this wonderful fanfare, kind of spinning us off into a wonderful intermission called Blinded by the Light, that's just going to make you want to dance. I mean, these are great musicians, and it's such a big project that it requires teams and teams of people to bring it to life.
All right, viewers, in case you have not played Final Fantasy yourself, and don't worry, you do not have had any interaction with the game to appreciate this music, Dylan has curated a playlist on Spotify. If you go to manitowocsymphony.org and click on this upcoming concert, you can actually scroll through the different songs and get a feel for what's going to be played, and it is beautiful and it is moving. And because of the Sister City dedication, just like the happy coats that Dylan and I are both wearing, if you have one of your own, if you have a yukata, if you have a kimono or some Japanese-inspired costume, you are welcome to wear it. You are encouraged to wear it. A bunch of us will be wearing ours. Or because of the video game tie-in, maybe you have an awesome Mario and Luigi costume or something like that that you want to wear. Put it on and come to the concert and have a great time.
I love it. And the relationship building, right, with Japan and our friends abroad, absolutely. But we're also trying to build some relationships at home too with this. And so part of making this music on this first half of this Final Fantasy suite is to double down on our educational mission of the symphony. And we've invited the string musicians, the string orchestra from Lincoln High School to come join us. And so they're going to be playing side by side with our orchestra. There's going to be 95, I think, instrumentalists on stage, something along those lines, maybe 96. I can't remember what the last number is, who are playing this music with us. And by all means, if you're of this generation and you grew up playing video games, then you're probably chomping at the bit to make this music. And so there's a way we can connect to them and to have them realize with the games that they're playing right now, perhaps on their own consoles, and allow for us to have a little mentorship and coaching and deepen this relationship with what's happening in the public schools. Great things are happening in the public schools.
I love that. So you're saying that the orchestra from Manitowoc Lincoln High School, they'll be on stage with the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra playing right alongside you guys?
They are. It's going to be fantastic. There's this wonderful model. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but there's a wonderful model that the Brits invented, I don't know, yes, 100 plus years ago. Schools were so small and had such diverse ages, and so you'd have these music programs, and how would you populate them? What would they play? And so the only way to make music together was to have multiple versions of the same part. So someone who's in 12th grade or whatever, who's able to play really fast and high and loud, whatever, all the things, could sit next to someone who's 10 or whatever, and they'd play the same music but simplified, less notes, less dexterity needed, expertise needed, maturation needed. And so what we're doing is we have our musicians from the high school and from the MSO playing at these two different levels, but they're playing the same music side by side. One's a little bit more straight ahead, where they can practice on playing really well in tune and with a great sound and in the right rhythms and all the things. And then we have the more virtuosic part that the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra is playing, and we lift each other up. And I think it's a great way for this modeling, for this mentorship, so they can see themselves of what they can achieve later on, but feel great doing this really cool, high quality thing where they can.
That is beautiful collaboration. And I feel like this is a good opportunity, too, to talk about the tickets, right? Because if it is one of your friends that's playing in the Lincoln High School Orchestra, for example, it is easy for you to come and see it because guess what? Ages 35 and under, you can buy tickets for $15. And then even the adult tickets around the rest of the auditorium are $35, $32, $28. You can get them at the Capitol Civic Center. You can go online to get them. You can also call the Capitol Civic Center, and they're available now.
cccshows.org.
Nice. That does roll trippingly off the tongue. I just want to put this back up for a second because what we're talking about is the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra Let's Paint, Let's Play Pictures and Games concert that's coming up Saturday, February 3rd at 7:30 p.m. It'll be on stage at the Capitol Civic Center. And I just want to read what it says. The inspirational pictures at an exhibition, Ravel and Mussorgsky, will arrest our senses with its colorful brilliance and will explore sensational music from the Final Fantasy video game universe by Nobuo Uematsu, considered to be the Beethoven of gaming composers. Join us at our next concert in support of education and our sister city of Kamigawa, Japan. Special guests, members of the Lincoln High School Orchestra, conducted by Haley Rathmel. So that leads me to believe that we should talk a little bit about pictures at an exhibition. What does that mean?
So the first half, if we want to be literal about the title, Let's Play, or playing video games and the such. Let's Paint speaks to the second half. So 150 years ago, I guess now, this Russian guy named Modest Mussorgsky, a musician who was writing opera and all the things that you might imagine, he lost his best friend. And his best friend passed away. He was an architect and a designer and a painter far too early in his life. And Mussorgsky, and a couple of his friends put together this retrospective of his life. And I think it's something around near 400 of his artworks were put on display. He was really starting to make a name for himself. Victor Hartmann was his name. He just started winning some big competitions, international competitions about architecture and design and such. And so they put on this retrospective of his paintings, of his sketches, of his drawings, of all the things that he'd been producing over his last couple of decades of life. And Mussorgsky visited of course, you can imagine the retrospective, and he walked around this art museum, this gallery of these different rooms with all these different works of arts from his recently departed best friend. And as he'd walk about, he would stop and he'd look at a painting, and then he'd walk a bit more and he'd stop and look at a painting. And he got this idea that he should create music based upon that experience. The paintings that were shown were just a retrospective of his life. They weren't necessarily curated to say like one specific thing. And so as you popped around this room, it was a dramatically changing of its inspiration, what the painting was supposed to represent, who was it intended for, all the things, the medium. I mean, it was just this great hodgepodge, in the best sense of the word, of all these different things. And so Mussorgsky got the idea to write some music to as you walked around. He'd call it a promenade. You'd walk around the art museum, and as you'd stop and something would arrest your eye, that he wrote music. Then it's just a 2-3 minute little thing that this music really represented. This music really spoke to. So it's not necessarily telling a story; it's telling a story of this friend's life in a lot of ways. And so it was written for solo piano, and it had some success, nothing too crazy. But then a good 40 years later, the greatest colorist of all time, the greatest orchestrator, so someone who takes music for one instrument, for the piano, and then he turns it into a full orchestra. You can do this with expert sensibilities for timbre and color and texture and all these things. And Maurice Ravel is his name. He's greatest orchestrator perhaps of all time. And he took this piano music. He heard something in this music, and he wrote it for orchestra, and immediately became an international sensation. And one of, if not Ravel's most beloved music, even though he's not the author of it, and certainly Mussorgsky's most known music. And since over the last 100 years now, since Ravel wrote this orchestration in 1921, if I'm not mistaken, there's something like over 120 other orchestrations that people have tried to write. I mean, people are so captivated by this music by Mussorgsky, and to turn it into something else, because Ravel did such a good job of it. And so it's this basically 40-minute kind of walk through an art museum where you stop and you promenade for a bit. And you stop and you look at a painting, and it tells this very specific story. Maybe it's of little costumes of kids running around in ballet costume, or you promenade and you stop at a famous market in France, and you see the chattering of all the shoppers here and go, or you promenade to another painting, and this time it's the great architecture of what was going to be, never got built, unfortunately, a great gate of Kyiv. So as you were to approach Kyiv, Ukraine, you'd walk through very typical kinds of great arch, welcome you to the city. They have these all over the Europe, as you can imagine, if you've seen some yourself. And it's just this beautiful coloristic exploration based upon these literal works of art. And what we're doing, which is so fantastic, I'm so excited about, is about 10 years ago, someone set the idea of these paintings to film. A whole bunch of USC undergrads and grads in Southern California who were in visual media and in 3D rendering, all the things. They were invited to put together a movie inspired by this music and inspired by these original pictures by Victor Hartmann 150 years ago, to turn them into film. And so while we play this great music, this great, colorful, beautiful, arresting senses on our ears, we're also going to be treated to the visuals of this very new film. And what's very cool about this film is going to be bigger than you've ever seen projected on CCC stage. It is literally like 55 feet in wide, or however wide the stage is of CCC. That's how wide this film is. It is gigantic. And it was originally one of the renditions is for 3 different screens. I mean, that's how big it is. And the also cool thing, if I can keep on going, is that it's not just music and film, where the film is a set time and length, and the music has to then fit to whatever this film is. That dichotomy is switched. Some brand new software has come out recently from the Twin Cities. A musician, a conductor, invented this, where the playback of the film follows the music, not the other way around. So the music can do whatever it needs to do, breathe however it needs to breathe for whomever's playing it, whatever time and place we're doing it, and the visuals are able to adjust to whatever's happening live. This has never been done before. Groundbreaking stuff. It's going to revolutionize the way that a film and or any kind of visual media and music relate. It's super fantastic, and I don't think it's ever been done in Wisconsin before. I mean, this is really groundbreaking stuff, and I'm tickled pink to put this on at the Civic Center on February 3rd.
Dylan, this is so cool. And what I'm hearing is you've got this concert prepared and planned that is going to astonish across demographics, right? Like I'm just astonished hearing it. And I think it's this perfect matchup too. People love pairings. People love like wine and food pairings, right? You're talking about an art and music pairing. And you've shared a link so we can get an idea of this film that you're talking about. Do you mind if I play it?
Please.
Okay, we're going to play a quick little, about a minute long clip of this incredible piece of film that Dylan was describing. So here we go. Okay, that is so cool, Dylan.
The little screens that we watch on. I mean, I got to see this. We got to try it out last week at the Civic Center, Capitol, and to be on stage with a film that's so massive, it just feels really cool.
And I love that there's kind of this visual representation of the music that you're hearing. So it's like
Yes.
all of your senses are participating.
It's going to be a treat. I've never seen anyway attempt such a grand thing, and so I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you on this episode of Coffee on the Coast, too. We wanted to make sure, viewers, that you are aware of this incredible performance that's being planned because we don't want you to miss it. This is unlike anything that you've seen or experienced, I think, here. Do you think that's accurate, Dylan?
I think it's fantastic. This Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, at Ryan's, there's going to be a video game night in case anybody wants to come out and hear some live music from the orchestra. They're going to play some video game tunes while people will I think they're going to hook up some consoles to the TVs behind the bar, and you can play some games while you have a nice meal or beverages and hear some live music. So if you're into this whole video game thing, check us out Wednesday at Ryan's. And other than that, well, we're just chomping at the bit to make this concert happen in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so Wednesday, January 31st at Ryan's on York is what Dylan is talking about. And Dylan, there's going to be like a string quartet that's there.
Yes.
Cool. And video games. And if there's a controller open, you can jump in and play. What a cool experience. And then also after the concert, after you've had this amazing, immersive, cool experience, paint, play, there is an afterglow following the concert at the Stage Door Pub. There'll be some drink specials and just a time to, I would say, continue the high spirit from the concert experience.
There's always some fantastic specialty drinks, absolutely, that are mixed up just for the concert, just for us, just for the show. One time ever only, perhaps. There's always giveaways and things at after the after parties. And so absolutely, an easy walk right on over to the Stage Door Pub to be able to continue the party, continue the conversation.
Yeah, and one other thing I should mention too is, in celebration of the Sister City friendship, so we've got the happy coats, you're encouraged to wear yours. There's also going to be a piece of samurai art, and you're encouraged to take selfies and things with this guy before you go in to enjoy the concert.
Did I see that it's already up?
It is up. It's in the front window now at the Capitol Civic Center.
So go down 8th and you can't miss it.
It's going to be a great night. Thank you so much, Dylan. We really appreciate you coming on to tell us all about it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, folks, you don't want to miss it. Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra, Let's Paint, Let's Play, February 3rd at the Capitol Civic Center. Tickets are on sale now. My guest today was Dylan Chmura-Moore, Maestro of the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra. We'll see you next time on Coffee on the Coast. Bye, everyone.